cameras. Ready?
Have a mic? Mic?
How's this wire? Check. We have speed, cameras rolling, and take camera one.
I didn't come as a comic book fan, so to me, I needed to, and I couldn't rely, I didn't want the audience to rely on full knowledge of the source material. They had to believe in the world and take it seriously. And the X-Men have always been kind of based in the real world environment, so that's why we were able to open the film in a concentration camp and take it quite seriously.
And some really good scenes to act. I mean, it wasn't all action. It was a lot of just sitting down, talking it.
Yeah, I've always sold it as this is not an action movie. This is a movie with action in it.
Yeah,
I guess you'd say.
And drama actors.
And great actors.
And ideas, points of view about the world historically and about the future too.
Yeah, is that what attracted you guys, the new guys, to the X-Men universe?
Did you see that first movie?
Did you see those movies?
What are we talking about?
There were X-Men movies before First Class. I beg your pardon? I beg your pardon?
We walked right into that, didn't we?
Yeah, no, I mean...
No. Yes, no.
Yes, no is always a good thing because it keeps both sides comfortable. No, I was a fan of the concept of, outsiders and people that feel like they don't fit in, belong. That is sort of because, like you, Brian, I never was a fan of comic books as a kid. I never read any X-Men and didn't know much about it until the films. And that was the one thing that I always drew me to the films, was that idea of an outsider, somebody who's not accepted. And I think, through various parts of anybody's life, most people experience that at some point. And I think that's why the series is so popular all over the world, because that's a universal sort of feeling. And then again, something that we were discussing earlier, the civil rights element to it, and two sort of opposing ideas, looking for the same thing but different methods.
Well, I know one of the first things you ever said to me, Brian, about it was that it was relevant to being gay as a young person, that a young person might consider himself to be a mutant or be treated as a mutant by the rest of society. And isn't it true that the demographic for the readership of the comics is young blacks, young Jews, and young gays?
Mm-hmm. Well, comic books in general, I think.
Oh, is that right?
I always felt the gay allegory I always felt was very strong, because some minorities grow up in at least in a family of their minority or in a community. A gay kid wakes up, in adolescence and starts to realize they're different from the parents, from the brothers and sisters, from the neighborhood, and that can become even, more isolating. So that's when I first discussed with you, and you were such an activist, that was my angle. McKellen in. Stuart?
No, you were right.
Different angle. Hallie?
Totally so.
Hallie, I went with the civil rights.
Is that what you got?
I can relate.
Did you get that?
That's why I got the part. First time in my life, I got a part because I was black.
No, I was.
Did you know that Magneto was gay? Has he told you that?
No, that he was Irish is what he told me.
I remember I'd seen Hallie in Bulworth, and she was fantastic in that movie, and then came in, so that was a no-brainer. And the only issue there was the wig, and I think
Oh my God.
that I couldn't.
It was the issue even now. That wig is still the issue.
I know. I remember in the hotel room you were finally, because I'm not good with things like wigs and.
You don't wear wigs?
Who knew?
Don't lie to me. I saw you the other night.
Yeah, we saw you. Well, you wouldn't know, but but I remember, yeah, and from movie to movie, it's still an issue.
Still an issue.
But
Wigs
And it's an
beards
issue with the fans, too. I mean, they take personal ownership over Storm's hair and how it should be and how it shouldn't be, and it's an issue.
Which means Peter's hairdo in this. Everybody thought Peter was
Speaking
wearing
of
it,
wigs.
but he wasn't.
Oh, wait till you see the 70s wig that I wear.
Oh, yeah, no, it is no wig on Peter.
No.
It is his real startling
Just
hair. He
a
reminds
dash of
me.
What was the
humidity.
driver? The driver was on the way to.
Is it hot?
He was like, it's
Why is he Irish? I don't know. He asked me if it was hot, and I said, what? The wig. Is it hot? Yeah, it is very hot. If you mean sexy, yes, it is hot.
You're talking about the fans. Like, how aware are any of you of the fan talk back and what they do and don't like from the movies as we make them, as we move forward? Like, where do you get the access of the fans being?
They come up to me and tell me all the time. You know, even our first movie is 13 years ago, they still come up to me and they have comments about the wig, the X-suits. One of their biggest concerns has always been, why does Storm get no love? How come nobody wants to love Storm? How come no guy is attracted to Storm? I said, I don't know, I'm asexual, don't you know? And the fans really can't understand why Storm gets no love.
Tempestuous.
And I never have an answer for that. So, you know, I'm always trying to recreate, you know, come up with some answer that will satisfy them in the moment.
Other guys, fans?
Any reasons why?
Fans?
Am I a fan?
fan? No,
I
it's
was
like
a fan of the cartoon when I was a kid, and but again, I never read the comic books. But I think what's quite interesting about the whole series of films that are related to each other, no problem. No, but it's true. It's good. It's good. Is that, you know, like the comic books actually, like the people that they portray, but like the comic books, they constantly evolve. There's different runs. They're all different. And I think that's what I responded to with getting, you know, the approach to go and do First Class, was that it represented an evolution. And what's really interesting about this movie is that it carries on with that evolution at the same time as trying to hold on to what it has always been as well. So it's like a kind of Darwinian picture, do you know what I mean, for X-Men. It's quite interesting. And that's what I like about X-Men, because if you are going to have, you know, including the Wolverine pictures, 7 movies, they can't just stay the same. And they have, I think, moved. And that's the difficult thing I've found with fans, is that some fans want you just to stay the same. They don't want you to change, they don't want, but then how are you going to make new fans? And how are you going to, and not all fans are like that. Some fans want it to evolve, you know. But some people like that one run of that comic book, and some people like that one movie of that group of films that are related to each other.
In France, Omar, it was X-Men. What's X-Men in France? What is the...
X-Om.
Is it called X-Om? Yeah, it's
X-Om?
translation.
Magneto.
Of course, there is all around the world. We have X-Men fan, because it's a universal story about the outsiders, people outside of the society. We have that all around the world. So we have that in France, and we have X-Men fans in France, big fans. And I just came from France. I was there for 2 weeks, and people jump to me and say, "Give me some more. Give me some news about X-Men. How was it?" I can tell, because I wouldn't break the secret, but the people can beat you for some promotion. So it's a big deal to X-Men in France. It's very, very big, very big.
Yeah, you guys are new to it, Evan. You're new to it too.
Well, how old were you guys when the X-Men 1 came out?
Yeah. 22.
And Ellen?
I don't know. We did the third one when I was 18, so I must have been 13 or 14, I guess. Yeah.
You're saying?
Yeah.
And you just, something for Evan, you just started really on the film, and you got jumped into this crazy guy and this guy and Nick, and what was that like to just get dropped into this universe?
Pretty intimidating. Yeah, really intimidating. All really good actors, and a lot of special effects stuff that I have to do that I don't really know how to do.
It's cool, man. You nailed it, though. Like, your first day you came in, you absolutely nailed it. You started without you.
Am I allowed to say? No. Hey, whatever. Sorry, I'm late.
I think we're allowed to talk about this, and I was told we need to ask more specific questions about this specific movie. What was it like working together?
Well, in terms of the movie, we're there and not there. Mm-hmm. Is it fair to say that, Brian?
Yeah.
That sums up your acting, really.
There speaks a man who spent the last 3 weeks in a rehearsal room with me.
Are you guys going to share a dressing room again for this one?
We have not yet
I hope
negotiated.
so.
Yeah. I may have moved on a little.
He's got to share his life with someone else eventually.
We had 1 half day, I think, on the set, and it was memorable for a variety of reasons.
For you.
You've already forgotten it.
I don't know your bloody name. No, it was good, eh? It was really interesting and really, I don't know, I never thought for a minute when I took on Charles that I'd ever be acting with you playing Charles. So it was kind of brilliant. And I've been a fan of yours for years, so that was a bit of a thrill too.
They're both being self-deprecating, so
We've
I'm going
been
to say,
really fucking humble here.
being
Sorry,
on
swear.
set, watching these guys, and I remember, and I commented to Patrick, it was James's first day on set. It was a really pivotal scene, and literally walked straight on into this incredibly, I think, will become iconic moment, which I think you beautifully directed. It was so great to watch the two of them. I fell asleep at one point, but apart from that, it was a good 2 or 3 hours into it, and I was on this anyway.
You know, you were lying down anyway, dude.
Yeah.
It's cool.
And Michael, talk about a little bit, you know, because we're arcing from First Class to this movie to imagining you would eventually become Ian in your. How do you sort of fashion the performance with him in mind, but, you know?
Well, I've just been watching a lot of YouTube footage, and just trying to sort of, you know, make that sort of connection. Because again, like in First Class, it was supposed to be sort of a brand new sort of shake-up. So there was a point in time where I was talking to Matthew at the time. I was like, well, should I go away and study Ian's accent? And Matthew was like, no, I want you to stick with your accent. So that's going to be a bit of a weird thing in this one. I will be speaking differently. So in this one, because we were both in the same film and that opportunity came about, I did what I was sort of thinking of doing in the first one. So I studied a lot of Ian's RSC workshop tape. From what year is that? Was that 1979?
Some time ago now.
No, 79? Something like that? Anyway, so I've been listening to that probably thousands of times and just sort of working away on that. And then it's always kind of weird doing the metal manipulation. So I studied a little bit of that as well. Yeah, see, not bad.
Oh, there we go. Ladies and gentlemen.
They're not very similar. Oh, it's a match.
Oh, that's creepy, isn't it?
So
you never got to sail the Golden Gate Bridge over to Alcatraz, did you?
No, that's ridiculous.
He does something similar.
Yeah, we've done something similar.
Oh, have
in this
you?
one, yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
what?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe even bigger, Ian. I'm just saying.
Oh,
I didn't
maybe.
You can
What?
say it, yeah.
And how do you keep it straight here? You got everybody. You're both sides of the coin. You're both periods. You've been in every movie.
Very greedy, very greedy. It's been an unbelievable opportunity because, I mean, if you think how when Brian first took on X-Men 1, comic book movies were really not, forget about in vogue, they really weren't on the table at all. And now you have an unbelievable cast, some who are not even with us today, and I get the opportunity to work with every one of them. I feel unbelievably grateful, literally every day. And the way, I hope I'm not giving away too much, but
We control this, so.
Oh, I love it. So Ian and Patrick, I think it was mainly your schedule where they were doing a play. So we shot the future part first. So it was literally like a reunion to begin with. There was, Brian and all of us together, and obviously Howley and Ellen and Sean and Anna Paquin, and it was unbelievable to be on set and do that for, I don't want to say how long, but. And then we sort of flipped and went into the past, where in a way, you and me, Brian, were walking in the atmosphere that you guys have created, because the movie is really a sequel to your movie. So it's been an incredible embarrassment of riches. It's like doing 2 great movies in one.
It's also fun because I chose to bring in the hallways and Cerebro from the original X-Men films, because John Meyer and I always were inclined to, the production designer always were inclined to believe that those were built like futurism of the 60s and 70s, kind of like 2001. So to have those sets now built again for the whatever 3rd or 4th time, and then to have the younger actors who were in First Class, who've been in an X-Men movie, played famous X-Men characters, but have never been in those particular sets. Was very fun. And they happened to be doing their costume fittings, Nick, Jen, and all you guys, some of you guys, and walk. It was fun to watch them walk on those sets and feel like, oh, it's like if I walked on like the Millennium Falcon or some kind of familiar set, and then seeing you standing there in full Wolverine is also in that environment is also, it was fun to watch those guys ease into it.
More fun than the first time I walked on that set, because I remember one of the crew members says, "Oh, Elvis is in the building," and you overheard it because my hair was like, woo. And we shut down filming, and we went back to the makeup trailer for about 5 hours.
Who was it that said that?
It was this guy who did not work on the film for long. No.
That's my first. I've done a film that took place in the 80s, the 40s, and a film, Second World War. This is a period of time that I was a child in. Probably when I was watching and consuming this kind of science fiction fantasy material, and yet making a film with the design, the clothing is such a weird mind. Seeing how awful the collars were, and the pants and the fitting. I mean, you guys make them look very good.
The 70s is a good time for fashion. You
love
hate it.
I think it's ridiculous.
I love it. The 70s has been good to me. I was born then.
The cars are great.
The cars and mate, we've had some good cars.
50s?
50s for me for cars.
Yeah, okay.
Most beautiful designs.
Just embrace it,
Meadows in
man.
the 70s
You're in the
were nice.
70s.
I'm loving it.
Embrace it.
I'm going Ron Burgundy in the whole thing.
Going back to what you were saying earlier about the Cerebro corridors, I freaked out completely because it was walking along in there, and obviously I watched the original films when I was like 10 or whatever.
Shut up.
And then, very young. And then looking over, it was, because like when we did the First Class, it didn't really feel, even though it was an X-Men movie, it didn't really feel related. So walking in those corridors and looking over at you, I was just like, I completely freaked out and was so nervous until your wheelchair went really slowly for that one take. We all lost it. We were walking along so slowly.
The guys had to walk behind my wheelchair, and and for some reason it had been turned, the speed on it had been turned down, and so we did this take, and we have to travel like 20 meters or something like that, and my chair is literally going like this fast, and it just took us like what, a minute and a half to walk it, and we're all like, just the guys are walking behind me like this going. It was painful.
And
Nobody
Brian's like,
shouts,
just
"Cut."
make the dialogue last for the
It's amazing.
move. That's right. That's funny.
One of the things that's cool about the movies is just how the villains are always really real and grounded. And we have a new villain in this movie. You want to talk a little bit about Trask?
I played the villain?
Not from your perspective.
No, everyone believes they're right. All our villains believe they're right, and they're all
Justified.
Justified, that's it. Yeah, and they're justified sociopolitically. Again, not necessarily personally. There's no personal vendettas or revenge stories. There was a bit in X-Men 2 with Stryker because of his son, but in this Trask is more of a. Actually, he's a peace lover, oddly enough.
Yeah, he has good intentions. He doesn't have a flamboyant villain costume or anything like
Just
that.
hair.
He has great hair and a pair of eyeglasses and his microscope. But he really, truly does. It's really grounded in reality, and he really does think he's doing the world a service. He likes his economic freedoms, but he really sees them as a threat.
Yeah, there's a line in the movie. At first I thought, oh, mutants, are they really that bad? And it's your scene in the White House where you basically explain to President Nixon that, one can control metal, well, that's your army, and the other can be anyone, even you.
Right.
Which means they can launch a nuclear strike if they want to, and that's just two of them. And suddenly I was like, wow, you'd need to start revolutionizing your army and changing your tactics if you did fear a group like that.
It is the classic thing where the mutants are just sort of evolving faster. Human beings are kind of like the Neanderthal, and they will be overtaken. I mean, that's just sort of the laws of sort of evolution, isn't it? So.
Yeah, those are
Also,
just.
what you said as well about like quite often the baddies in X-Men being grounded in reality. If X-Men and mutants in this world represent, like we've been talking about, the ghettoized, the disenfranchised, the people who are on the outside looking in, generally your biggest enemy, or certainly the person you're probably most afraid of, is Joe Normal. Do you know what I mean? Because that's the person that's got a problem with you. The normal guy. That's your bad guy, you know? So it's quite interesting that like he is so grounded in reality and truth.
Brian, was there ever a moment for you of Well, there must be some nerves with every movie, but having done 1 and 2, taking a break, was this an easy decision, or were you always like, oh?
Well, it was an easy decision to make because I had produced and wrote the story for First Class, so I was already involved in that movie, and the opportunity to get to work with that amazing cast as a director now, and get back with you guys who are just awesome to work with. I had so much fun with it. That made it an easy decision. The story was scary. Initially, we didn't have the time travel figured out, how it would work, like just how it would work, because there's a lot of laws that you have to create and then adhere to when you're making those kind of movies. So it was only the moment when I felt that I had figured that out that I felt confident to move forward and now explore the story that Simon had been developing with Matthew, and that we were continuing to develop together. You know, it's funny, the title, it feels like we're living Days of Future Past in our own reality. Like, there's certain things that have happened in the past, and now I get to go back in time with all these folks and mix it up a bit, change it.
Yeah, when we were working on the script, one of the things that was tough for people was the way it bounced from future to past, and they couldn't track it. So I just started putting in the slug lines, as you all know, or the ones of you that read the script, that it says future and past in the slug line. So it literally is bouncing back and forth the whole movie. And the biggest thing we did from the comic book to this film, I think that the biggest change was in the original story, Kitty Pryde goes back in time. And in this, she's sending Logan back. So I don't know if you read the comic or the script first.
Oh, I read the script, yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think this was a great way of figuring out how to meld the two together, and I just love the whole aesthetic of the future and the difference from the last one, and the sort of DIY survival. It was awesome.
There were moments for me that were cool in the future too, because, and it was the first day of shooting, and you were saying, when people are going to see the fact that Bobby and Magneto are walking down this hallway, what does that mean? How does that expand the world? I mean, these two characters that never would have interacted in the past are all of a sudden interacting, and to what end? And I think that's kind of a fun avenue that was opened up, because all of a sudden these people that were enemies in the past have found that common goal, and I think that's just a fun thing to explore with all these characters. And just as an actor, it's like, Ian, you and I were in scenes before, but we never really spent much time together, and so that was kind of a nice surprise to get to do that. So that was kind of fun for me.
It's mature as well. That's the mature thing about the comic books and the series. That's what happens, in times of war, political, leaders that are total sort of opposite ends, they do get together. They have to get together sometimes and work things out and sort of even work together. So I've always found that really interesting with the relationship between Professor X and Magneto, that there's a complexity there that just goes beyond, two sort of enemies. They're friends as well as being enemies. That's great. There's so much to play with there.
And you guys get to do both things in this movie. I mean, when you come back together, you're sort of enemies, you unite and then split back apart.
Yeah, it's almost like they both realize they're both necessary. They're both sides of the coin.
Yeah, I think, James, you said that at one point, that there couldn't be a Professor Xavier without a Magneto in his life, that there is part of the evolution was having to go through the...
Yeah, I think so. I think that, I think the way I've always viewed Professor X is as a voyeur, not Professor X, but Charles, as I've had the opportunity to play him, is as a voyeur. So he's a genius and he's got this ability to read people's minds, but his real power is a very human thing. His real gift is empathy, He can empathise with people's problems and he can help them. But as a young man, I think, certainly the way I tried to play him was that he was much more like a kind of posh guy, fascinated with working class guy, do you know what I mean? A little bit. And he becomes very sort of drawn to that figure then. And then what happens in this movie is at the end of the last movie, you give him his angst. You give him his thing that makes him just like everybody else, actually, and therefore he can't be a voyeur inside people's minds anymore. He's a passenger on the same train, and the train is going to hell, and they're like that with each other. They're really close. They're stuck in each other's journey, aren't they?
Was the hairstyle your idea? Changing the hairstyle?
No.
That was
That was
really
Brian's
cool.
idea.
Yeah, we just wanted to again be well. My feeling about the future is that you've sort of had to become militarized.
Yeah.
So I wanted Storm. This is the Storm, the warrior fighter that she ultimately had to become in this alternate terrible future.
It was my favorite version of Storm, actually. I thought it finally came together for me who she was. The hair had always been an issue. I mean, when you have to wear a head of gray hair, you know, that right away, that's like a little daunting. But I think that...
Platinum.
Platinum, that's a nice way to put it. No, it looks gray. But I think this time, because of the edginess of it and the vibe of it, it made gray a lot easier to pull off, or platinum a lot easier to pull off.
We're going to wrap up, I think, but I'll ask you last thing. I was thinking about just having everybody here, that tweet you made about the Oscars and Emmys and all the different insane awards these people have won.
The hardest kind of acting to do is taking the most outlandish characters and making them believable and serious. I think it is some of the hardest acting. Dramatic acting is conventional drama. You know, believability is grounded in something we all understand. But when you've got to make an audience believe in characters who can fly and who can move metal and do all this fantastical, sometimes silly stuff, silly seeming stuff, and actually bring truth to it, requires the best actors. So it makes sense to me that such a lauded group of actors participate in this kind of movie. But when we were adding it up, it's like I couldn't fit the nominations into my tweet, but it's insane. That's when these movies are at their best, and that was why it was so important early on. Ian and Patrick, in the very beginning, that was to make, you know, that would legitimize this endeavor. We almost, Hugh, that was X-Men 1.
Yeah.
You came in.
I was cast after you'd started filming.
So yeah, almost a month of filming.
Remember this? Yeah. No, I came in to do a test with Brian. They said you're gonna have to wait to the end of the day because they're shooting, and I was like, what?
Yeah. I was almost hoping you wouldn't work out because then I'd shut down for 2 weeks and figure out the script.
Right.
And then you walked in, I was like, oh, this guy might work. I told you what happened though. This one guy comes up. While you were doing your screen test with Anna Paquin, this custodian at Roy Thompson Hall comes up to me, and he doesn't know who I am, direct, because I'm standing kind of away from the monitor. And he pokes me. I'm like, yeah, and he says, "Is that the guy they got to play Wolverine?" And I was like, yeah. And the guy was like, cool. I was like, oh, phew.
Cool. Because I had no money, and I gave him $50, and it was a lot of money
See that guy over there, tip him on the shoulder.
He can tip on the shoulder and go, this guy's cool, he's awesome.
It was memorable because we've been shooting a couple of weeks or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And this cute Australian guy turned up, and we all thought he was really cute and really nice. I remember you saying, like, well, you know, you won't see me again after today. How was the accent then?
That was pretty good.
That's pretty good, yeah. Real bad.
And then I think before the day was over, you'd made the decision.
Oh, no, I offered it to, it's the only time I've ever offered a film directly to somebody.
I never thought I haven't got a job more in my life, because as everyone on these couches will know, when Brian directs, it quite often is difficult to tell if he's happy or not, because we cut. All right. This was my audition. All right, just do the second scene. Yeah, maybe a little. Yeah, all right, cut. And I was like, oh, I haven't got this. He couldn't be less enthused, and he came over and gave me a hug. He said, thanks, Wolverine, you're on the film. I said, what? It was, I was quite surprised.
Did they make you do any kind of like and stuff?
No, thank God.
No.
No.
Well, he was coming off Curly in Oklahoma,
That's
so
right.
it was sort of like, hello. You know. In the end, it's very much about Charles becoming Charles, or becoming Professor X, or the other. You know, each movie has their own, you know, specific journey, but in the end, I think that people are going to find at the heart of the movie. That's the story we're telling, and I like that story. Professor X has always been my personal favorite character, probably because I'm a director and he's sort of the director of his peer group, and yet it's lonely at the top.
Jeez.
Yeah, it's lonely in the middle.
Oh, let's go, guys.
He's always been.
Yeah.
Shall we?
Let's go. What?
We'll leave you with Charles.
What did I say?
Thank
Thank you, guys.